I think we talk about ghosting like it's always this cruel thing, but we rarely talk about how much access we expect to have to each other. And that disconnect is where this conversation starts. This is your Critical Crush, where we keep it cute, candid, and connected. I'm Theo, and let's get critical. Alright, so let's get into it, y'all. I've been wanting to have this conversation because I feel like we always want to talk about ghosting. We always want to talk about lapse in communication, lacks of communication when it comes to all aspects of relationships, friendships, family, dating, love, all the things. But I feel like there's a piece of it that we don't ever really highlight. And I really feel like accessibility is a huge factor into why we may feel we don't get the communication we want, while we expect certain types of communication. I feel like it's all intermingled. I feel like it's all connected. And being that we live in 2026 now, and with technology advancements, we have a lot of access to each other. Like, we are in a hyper accessible time in our lives. And this is just recent. Like, within the last, 20, 30 years? You know, if you grew up in the 90s, if you're a millennial like me, you knew how different it was when it came to access. You know how different it was when it came to how we could communicate. And if you're even older than me and you are a Gen X or a boomer, you know way different how communication and how you can communicate and the best way to communicate were back then. I mean, phones, letters, all those things were kind of the norm, and then we eventually got to cell phones and pagers and computers and text messaging. But you know, this is all recent. And with all that, we have text messages, we have DMs, we have snaps, we have slacks, we have chats, we have stories. We have so many ways to access people all the time. And I think we as a society has put so much pressure on what you have access to, who you have access to, what time you have access to someone, that I think has clouded our judgment when it comes to communication. Or I think it just puts a weird stain on it. I'll say that. I feel like it puts a weird stain on communication and what our expectations are when it comes to the level of accessibility we have. So I kind of just wanted to start there because I don't want this to be like ghosting is okay and, you know, ignoring people is okay and, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. I don't want this conversation to give clearance for that or lead to that. I just want us to all kind of discuss the nuances when it comes to communication, how we all can be a little bit better when it comes to our expectations, our thoughts, what we demand of people, and also understanding that it may not be our place to always expect that we're going to get certain levels of communication from anyone. So I want to dive deep into all of that. But yes, I think the hyper accessibility is a key that we often don't discuss. And I do think there are reasons to ghost. At times, I do think there are reasons to not communicate or to stop communicating with someone. I definitely do. Yes, an unpopular opinion, but one I think is worth discussing. Okay, so first I want to break down my thoughts on hyperaccessibility. And the first thing that comes to mind is replies and the time that you reply to someone or the time you expect somebody to get back to you. I really think we put too much weight on time and replies when it comes to human beings. I feel like we all work jobs, we all have hobbies, we all have other demands going on, and to think that someone's always going to quickly respond to your concern when their life is the most important thing in their life is their life, I think that's just bananas. And I think it's wild that people really put like a level of respect, like you didn't respect me because you didn't respond timely, or you don't value me because you didn't respond timely. I think that's just way too much pressure you are putting on the whole situation, and I think it's really going to affect your mental health and your mental capacity if that's how you view communication and that's how you view responses. And don't get me wrong, I know this can differ based on your relationship, whether it's your parent, whether it's your kid, whether it's your friend, whether it's your partner. But even then, I feel like we still have to put a layer of people have lives, people are their own autonomous beings, and even children and parents may be busy. And even your lover may just not see your message, or if they have something else going on. You know, I think we all just have to put the human back into communication that I think has gotten lost over the years with all the access that we do have. Because, y'all, I am a huge hater of read receipts. I will never understand the point of a read receipt. I do not get why you need to know that somebody read your message. Even right there, to me, you're just adding more information in your head that's not needed. Now, if you have your read receipts on because someone just never gets back to you, just want to know if they read your message and it's this whole thing, okay, sure, maybe I can throw you a bone. But that is one thing on every single device I have, every single Apple thing, every single social media account I have, the read receipts are off. I just feel like I like the freedom of reading something and coming back to it when I have the capacity to respond. I don't even feel like adding that layer of I know they saw I read it. Like that to me just is unnecessary. I'm all about living life in a way where if it's unnecessary, then it's unnecessary. You know, I'm just not about to introduce that into my stratosphere because people do take rare receipts seriously, unfortunately, because they think they can always have access to you. So I definitely think that's just one example of where I feel like the thought that you have to know when someone's reads your message to me is just too much access to that person already. And, you know, that's just my opinion. We're all human. We can have our own opinion. But I think that goes to my next thought where when it comes to accessibility is that we think silence is rejection. We think silence is disrespect. We think silence is, oh, what's going on? They're acting funny, or what's going on, or I haven't heard back from them in a timely manner. I think it's all linked together. So I feel like that read receipt or monitoring your messages, when the last time you text somebody or when the time you call somebody, can also add to this like level of like, oh, you've been disrespected. And I'm not saying that the length of time somebody gets back to you is never a factor. But these are just all ways that I feel like we as people are just so accessible to each other. And I think we put a lot of these demands on a lot of people and a lot of expectations on a lot of people. I think this is a norm in our brains. And I think that's why read receipts became a thing. I think that's why the timestamp of when you send a message became a thing. I think it's all intertwined as to like feeding our brains is to like, okay, they should have read this, they should have saw this, they should get back to me. And but what's so funny about this is we all have our own chaotic lives, and we know how chaotic a day can be. We know how chaotic an hour can be. We know how we can just forget things. We know how. I mean, honestly, Apple just added where you can make a message unread because people forget to text people back. That's just like a normal thing. I just saw it. I was busy, and I forgot to text you back. There's no love lost. And I think the people that can understand that get that we are human and that life happens. You know. And I really think that we just need to stop putting so much pressure on everything as this big thing, because I feel like when it comes to communication and when we get more into ghosting, we'll talk about it. I think we just put so much weight on that. And I think we can spend a lot of our time doing other things with our brain than pondering and wondering why somebody didn't do this or why somebody didn't do that, especially when the connection and the relationship is more loose, new, and fresh. And on to my next thought, I think a lot of people think your availability and your access that they have to you is linked to if you care about them or not. And I really just, yet again, to scale back and be human. We all have certain levels of availability, and we all can pick and choose what we want to do with it. And just because you communicate to me something or you want a response from me doesn't mean because I'm available, I have to give that time to you. I think a lot of people think, oh, if they're free or they have time, then that time is dedicated to whatever moment you've just created or whatever other humans created. And no, we all know that we have different capacity levels, and I feel like capacity matters at the end of the day. Like, we all know our capacity, and we can have the best intentions to want to respond to someone, but if we know we don't have the capacity, if we know we are emotionally exhausted, we just had a long day, or we're just not feeling it, then it's okay for us to use that available time for us. That time is not for you, it's not designated towards you, but it can be time designated toward you if the person feels like it. And yet again, I'm not saying these are hard, fast rules, but these are all aspects of hyper accessibility that I think we all fall into. Didn't have my headphones on for that whole period, but it's fine. But yeah, I just feel like capacity matters, and we are all human, and I feel like we all know that. So, and I think our intentions also matter, because even if someone may have the capacity, but maybe they just aren't in the mood that day, or you know their intentions generally are to get back to you, and it's not some huge emergency or some huge thing or whatever the case, then you should understand that. And I think we all just need to always put that extra context into things, like what really is the real deal when it comes to someone, versus automatically getting so upset when we may not get a response or we may not get accessibility to someone as we see fit. Because limited availability is healthy. When you limit your availability to people, that is healthy. When you are always available to people, when you always give access to people, you are then wearing yourself thin. You are always providing someone to kind of have a hand in what you're doing and how you're operating. And I just don't think that's healthy for any human. You know, I think all of us need to be able to control control and have our own availability when we want it and we need it. And we don't always need to be accessible. Honestly, I don't think to anyone. I don't even think to your mom. I don't think to your lover. I think we all need to have a level of like, okay, you don't have access to me 24/7 all the time. You know what I'm saying? But I definitely think there are some people out there with partners and lovers and kids that think that they are, awarded this access or this access is for them. Limited availability is healthy, but chronic disappearance is not. You can't chronically disappear from someone, go on gaps of time where you're not communicating, getting back to them, and you already have an established relationship. That is not healthy either, and that's not okay. So I don't want anybody thinking that I am allowing that, but I do think that we are all owed our own me time, our own time to determine when we're available, when we're not, even if there's free time that's showcasing we are available. I think we all can determine that for ourselves. And if somebody isn't available to you or they don't want to give that availability to you, I think what really matters is them letting you know that, of them explaining that, or them like giving context when it comes to it, especially if you guys already have an established relationship. And keep in mind, I keep saying established relationship. There has to be some weight. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper, but like established relationships make more sense for you to have expectations or for you to have a certain level of, okay, maybe you think you have a certain level of access or just have also expecting a certain level of response. That makes more sense. So I just want to plop that there as we continue to dive a little bit deeper here. So another layer of looking at the modern times that we live in is also the modern emotional fatigue. All the things we have going on all the time that exhaust us daily. I mean, we have so much access to each other. We have so much access to other things that we didn't have before. Like we literally could be working 24/7. Like if you have a cell phone, if you have a computer, you can be on email, you can be doing work projects literally 24/7. In the past, you worked a job, even if you worked long hours in the past, you still worked the job and usually went home. Like now we can work 24/7. A lot of people do work 24/7. So we have work stress, we have money stress with all the ways we can spend money, we can get money, we can lose money. There's so many more ways now than there were in the past. And I feel like that also adds another level of pressure. It's like, yes, I can respond back to you, or yes, I can maybe go on a second date with you, but maybe I don't have the money to, or maybe I'm just chilling right now the next 2 weeks until I get paid again. Like we all know how that operates, to where it's like, I'm not even gonna set up another date. I'm not even gonna hit her back yet or hit him back yet, or I don't even want to hit at my friend, even though they're back in town, because I just don't feel like spending money. I think we all can also relate to that. And I think that's also an aspect that I feel like we don't always think about when we're reaching out to people and we want to see them, we want to hang out with them. Like sometimes people just don't feel like spending money, and it's so expensive right now to do anything. Like to walk outside, call coffee, you're spending $100 something. So I think money anxiety is another example. Also, political climate, like the politics right now, the constant bad news, people are just exhausted. So sometimes getting back to you or wanting to have a whole chat about your bad day at work or your ex-girlfriend, so you saw them today or whatever the case may be, sometimes people just don't have the mental capacity because they are so fatigued, they are so exhausted, they are so over the world that we live in. And as someone who gets easily exhausted, even just being on TikTok or being on social media, you're on there for 2 seconds and you're just kind of just like, negative energy, get it off me, ew. I feel like sometimes it's like if your phone starts ringing, it's like, do I want to answer my best friend's call? Do I want to kiki with my sister? Do I want to talk to my brother? Do I want to talk to my mom? You know what I'm saying? I feel like those are just natural things that pop up because sometimes it's like, I don't have it today. And I'll text people like, girl, I'm tired. Sometimes when somebody calls me back, I'm gonna hit you back tomorrow, or I'm just relaxing. Like I would do that because sometimes like I do want to give the care. I do want to sometimes let people know. But do I owe them that sometimes unless it's an emergency? Not really. And I also don't always do that. Sometimes I will let the phone ring. And I'll just be like, I'm going to hit them back tomorrow. Or if I'm out or something, I'll hit them back tomorrow. Because it's like, why even have to set it up so now I got to explain myself and do this whole spiel when it's like, girl, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And if it's something serious, people will usually message you, And another aspect of emotional fatigue is identity fatigue. It's that fatigue of always having to show up as yourself, always having to be on. And it could even just be like always having to preface things with the person that wants to hang out with you or want to see you, or always having to be that more upbeat person that hangs around, or have to be the one that offers the laughs and the jokes, or is always the logical friend or the understanding friend or the friend that gives advice or the listening ear. And sometimes you just may not want to be that identity today. Sometimes you just don't want to be present. You don't want to perform. You just don't want to do all that. And that's just why you just aren't in the mood to be accessible. That's why you're not in the mood to be contacted. That's why you're just not in the mood. And sometimes even just having to take the step to then explain to someone why you're not in the mood is also just another form of identity fatigue. We've all felt that because we've all been there at work where we're like, we were on all day. We had meetings all day. I had 900 customers today. I was on the phone all day. I'm just over talking to human beings, and just to have to even pull the real you out, to have to pull the fun you out, or to pull the understanding one out, sometimes just like, I ain't got it today. You know? And people need to be more understanding that sometimes I just don't got it, you know? And I really wish people also understand that even when it comes to like, you know, especially with women, I feel like they deal with this a lot. It's just the emotional labor. And I feel like moms probably deal with this a lot. And I'm pretty sure I did this to my mom a lot, but it's where it's just like your mom is tired. She comes from a long work day and she just not trying to hear you, you know, gripe, or trying to hear you like beg her for something, or for you to nag her. You know what I'm saying? And I get parents are parents, but I feel like that's an example too, where it's like that emotional labor. A mom now has to act like a mom and be all sweet. And I feel like moms are still human, dads are still human, everybody's still human, to where it's like, I just don't feel like it today. I'm just gonna go take a nap. And I feel like it's different because they're people's kids. But that's just like another example of like, we have to give so much to so many people that the person that's not my kid, the person that's not priority, you are not getting that access today. Or you may think you are, but you're not. So I think that's just another way of thinking about it. And especially as Black people, we have to code switch, which I don't do as much anymore at work. But we have to code switch. We have to always have to come off a certain way because we want to get promoted, and we want to be in leadership, and we want to do this, and we want to show them that we can be the manager, and we, you know, whatever. And I know a lot of people have kind of chilled out a little bit on code switching ever since like George Floyd, but it's still something we have to do, especially in certain settings. We still have to put on. We still have to make sure we don't come off too ghetto, too hood, too this, too that, to get respect. So it's something we still do all of the time. And I think that's just another layer too, where it's just like, I literally have to code switch all day at work, where it's like, I'm just not trying to be on anymore. I'm not trying to, and it's not being on is like you're being fake. It's being on is like, okay, if I hang out with my friend, I have to act happy. I have to be into it. I have to be excited. I have to be fun. I have to be listening to what they have to say. And that just takes its own level of energy. And I think us being more aware of that and being like, okay, I'm going to talk to them another time. I'm going to, you know, make sure that I'm in a good energy before I talk to them. I feel like that's just managing your own nervous system right. I think that's also just protecting you from your own level of burnout, because we all know how it feels when your social battery is exhausted. When you've been on the phone too many hours, when you've been seeing too many people and you just want your bed and you just want to chill and you just do not want anybody in your ear. You don't want no humans around. We all been there. So identity fatigue can be really taxing, and I'm going to talk you through it here from my experience, because I can relate to this in so many ways, because I am a lot of times the more like life of the party friend. I'm the goofy friend. I'm the funny friend. I'm the kind of like feel awkward silence friend. I'm the friend that'll be like, oh, let's go to this next spot, or what are you doing, or what is this, or did you see this new movie? Or I'm very much a talkative social being. So I feel like a lot of times when people reach out to me, they're expecting me to be that person. They're expecting me to kind of feel that space and feel that gap, and also to be vibrant and to be lively and to be life of the party and to be Jay. And sometimes, just like every normal human, I'm not in the mood for that. And it's not even like in a negative way. Sometimes it's just like, I don't feel like being like that right now. I feel like just being nothing. I just feel like being neutral. I just feel like being at pause. And the funny thing is, when you're somebody who has a personality like mine, even if you do engage with some people and you're not giving that, then it's just all like, what's wrong? You're not acting like yourself, blah, 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 blah. And you have to do all this explanation. You have to do all this like, oh my God, now I explain. Because people don't expect you to be kind of like a normal human sometimes. I'm not saying my friends don't expect that, but I definitely feel like the person I am, they do have a certain level of expectation of what you'll kind of get, kind of what I'll offer if I'm hanging out with them or if they call me. And I think we all just have to be more understanding of people being human and us being all multifaceted, and us all having different levels of exhaustion, and also just having different times where we feel like we want to be that friend or we want to be that person, because it's all just different aspects of our identity. But sometimes we just want to turn certain aspects off. We don't always want to feel like we have this obligation to perform and to show up and to be present. And I think that is okay. And just because you pull back sometimes doesn't mean that you are lacking care, or you're lacking that you respect this person, or that you actually want to know what's going on, or you actually don't want to see them. I think it's normal to. I was heavily depressed this past summer. for a lot of reasons, but I was heavily depressed and I did isolate myself a lot. I didn't hang out with people as much as I normally would. I wasn't putting as much effort to meet new friends. But honestly, I felt like I really needed to also take time for myself to understand what was going on. I need to understand I need to seek help, which I did. And I really need to evaluate what I needed in my life, and having new people in my ear, trying to foster these new relationships in a new city, trying to have people having expectations of me. It just wasn't the right time. And I think sometimes we have to kind of understand when something's not the right time for us, to lean into friendships, to lean into new connections, to lean into dating, to lean into trying to start or reestablish a relationship with a family member or something like that. I feel like we also have to understand what our capacity is. And I think, and I'm not saying it's a perfect science to this. I wasn't perfect at it. I'm still not perfect at it. But I do think us all being more aware of what our capacity is, what we really have going on, what can we pour into, what we can't pour into, will help us get better at not being bad at communicating, and not ghosting, and not setting a tone that we cannot kind of roll with. I think we have a better understanding of what's going on with us, we can have offer better to others. Because I feel like when you force your availability, when you force your access, that's where resentment builds. Because it's like, girl, I don't really want to be here. I don't really want to talk to you. I don't really want to do this, but I'm here to show up. But then it's like, I don't really want to be here. So then it's like it's building this resentment. And I think also when people can't understand that you may need some time, or you may need a break, or you just may not be in the mood right then to have a conversation, or you may not just get back to them at a certain time because you are human and you have things going on, I think that also adds to the resentment. And like I said, I think ultimately just being open and honest, especially with someone who you have developed a relationship with, I think that's where you can really win when it comes to accessibility, ghosting, not performing, just really letting people know where you stand. I'm not really feeling well. Just kind of not so much prefacing all the time, but I feel like if you do have a relationship with someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, and it's been developed, and just kind of letting them know and setting the tone what the vibe is. I've been really busy lately. I'm not going to be able to be on the phone as much, or I'm really trying to save my coins, girl, so I'm not going to really be able to pop out as much as I can, or I hear you, girl, you've been going through with your job. But honestly, I really can't take all this negative energy right now. I think there's multiple ways that you can set the tone for someone you've had an established relationship with, and there's already that level of expectation and care and all the things. And now, one thing I've kept stating this whole episode is how an established relationship, a relationship you have established, a relationship that you have this connection with, family members, friends, dating, whatever, I feel like that offers more of that, communication and letting people know and setting the tone and just having a better level of understanding, and also just a better level of patience sometimes, because it's like, that is your family member, that is your friend. But let's be honest, when I think distance and ghosting is valid, is loose connections. Like early dating, y'all, first, maybe even a second date, like we're still trying to see if we have chemistry, we're trying to see if we vibe. And I'm not saying you ghost everybody, but if you're going on multiple dates and you went on one date with one guy and like you guys both never got back to each other, you don't have to send him a text of blah, 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 this is why I don't want to date, or, you know what I'm saying? I feel like we're not always having to send these texts and these messages to let people know why we're not interested in stuff. Now, yes, if somebody reaches out to you and you feel like you want to let them know, but even then, one date. Because sometimes, and I'm going to say this from my experience, and this is even with friends, sometimes when you tell someone you're not interested, or you don't want to continue, or you didn't find the chemistry, they do not take no for an answer. Or they're rude to you, they scream at you, they're weird, they're mean, all the things. And as someone who's a gay man who dates other men, and who's not the biggest man, I've definitely had weird situations where people have gotten a little obsessed with me. I've had dudes like blow up my phone, call me from like 10 different numbers. This one time I hung out with this guy once, y'all. Hung out with this guy once. We kicked it once. Went on a date. Then I think he ended up coming back to my place. We kicked it. We chilled. Blah, blah, blah. And y'all, after that, he would not stop blowing up my phone. And was like, oh my God, I like you so much. Da, 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 da. And I was like, honestly, I'm not really looking for nothing that deep. I really thought it was kind of like a fun situation, a grown-up situation, not really looking for something that deep. And I honestly just wasn't interested in him like that. On that level. Physically, yes, but like on like a relationship level, all that, I wasn't interested. And y'all, when I say this man would not stop blowing up my phone, I kept telling him no. He called me from like 8 different numbers. He would send me voicemails being like, you're so fake, from all these different numbers. Text message, y'all, it was the craziest thing. I'll never forget, I was calling my brother, nonstop being like, here's the next screenshot, here's the next screenshot. I literally contemplating changing my number. So that's just an example of like, you can do all the things, you can let people know, and you can be honest. I've had so many girlfriends where this happened to, where they'll tell like I know, Then he'll find their Instagram, he'll find her whatever, all her other social medias, he'll message her on there, he'll DM her, he'll do all these things, all these different steps, so I feel like you can say no and men will still continue, and not just men, people will just still try to reach out. When I've had new friendships before, I've let somebody know, like, honestly, I don't really know if we're like the same type of friend. Then they want a whole explanation. Oh, why can't we be friends? We hung out like twice. We don't have the chemistry and friendship that I'm looking for, and maybe you just vibe in a way that I don't want to vibe. So even when I've done that, it still is not an end. And I feel like that's when I usually ghost. To be honest, my ghosting usually isn't off rip, like, oh, I'm going to ghost you. It's usually when I do kind of say, like, oh, I'm not really interested, or, oh, like, I really wasn't wanted to move on with this, blah, 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 blah. And they do not take no for an answer. That's usually when I ghost. Because I'm like, now you're not respecting my boundary. And that's another thing I want to talk about when it comes to validation, when it comes to ghosting. If someone's not respecting your boundary, if someone's not making sure you're safe, if someone is really doing the absolute most, if they're being annoying, they're not taking no for an answer, and they're making you feel uncomfortable even, or it just was a very taxing situation, it's a very negative situation. I've been on dates before where the whole date was just negative, where they were just so rude to the waiter, where the vibes were just so negative. They wanted to argue on the date. Do you think I care if I ghost them, if they reach out to me? Do you think I care? I don't. Why? You gave me a negative experience, so why do I care to give you a positive one? Or why do I care that I feel like I owe you anything? So that's just another example. Also, I feel like if there's been no explicit agreements, if you are still getting to know somebody and it's just like, oh, we talking, we dating, or there's a friend, we hang out here and there, blah, blah, blah. If there's been no explicit agreements, I also don't feel that you need to feel that you owe this person anything. People come and go. Honestly, we meet more people that we aren't going to be in relationships with. We meet more people we're not going to be friends with. We meet more people that we're not going to like and not going to vibe with than people that we do. So we all know that. You have a small circle of friends, you have your lover, you have your family. So it's no surprise that we are going to meet more people than we actually end up connecting with. So that's okay. And that's all right. And if we didn't explicitly say, like, we're going to vibe, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, then I think it's okay to let that person go. And ghosting can be slow ghosting. I know there's different types. I mean, ghosting can be the cutoff ghosting. Ghosting can be the slow ghosting. Ghosting can be a block. Sometimes it's just a block and it's like out of sight, out of mind. I've done that before where it's like, I sent the message to the guy. I let him know I'm not interested. I don't feel like having any more conversations with him. Block. I don't even have to think about it no more. He's gone out of my brain. I don't have to put no more juice on it. Because sometimes it's like, I just don't feel like putting the brain juice on this. I've done my due diligence. I put myself out there, but now I'm not about to sit here and go through all that. So I also just think, also just knowing where it's like, I don't have the capacity, nor do I want to have the capacity. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to cut it off in a way that serves me. And I think that's also okay, especially if there's been no explicit agreements. Okay, now that I explained when ghosting or distancing is okay, these are examples of when ghosting is not okay. Now, if you have an established intimacy, an established connection, established relationship, for the most part, I mean, if you are really vibing with somebody, it's been established, especially over time, and there's been constant hanging out, constant communication, constant reassuring each other about this relationship, then I think that's not when you ghost. I think that actually is ghosting. I think that is when it's like rude and messed up, 100%. Because I feel like you've established something with someone. There's a relationship there. There's a bond there. And I think at that point, you should be able to articulate when you don't have the capacity, when something's going off, or when you are not feeling the situation no more. I think you should be able to articulate that. And uncomfortable conversations are a part of life. So if you cannot have an uncomfortable conversation, then I don't know what you're doing on this planet. And hey, I'm not saying they're easy. I have my issue with uncomfortable conversation all the time, but I feel like my therapist told me, she always told me this when it comes to uncomfortable conversations, the more you have them, the more comfortable it gets. The more you have them, the more comfortable it gets. So I just feel like have more uncomfortable conversation, especially if there are people you love and care about. So then that way people understand. Because I feel like a lot of people, especially in like loving relationships, they leave people guessing, they leave people hanging, they don't tell people the truth. Then they get resentful because the person doesn't know. And I don't think that's fair to the person. So if you have a feeling, if you want to break up, if you don't want to talk about this, if you don't have the capacity, if you don't have it, you can let them know that. And if they don't want to hear that boundary, then that's on them. And then maybe the next step is stopping communication. Maybe the next step is not giving them as much access. I think that's when you can kind of set those new boundaries, but I feel like you at least need to let the person know, especially if it's an established relationship and has established intimacy. and ongoing relationships. I feel like ongoing relationships, especially if it's like a coworker or something like that. I mean, I know it can get a little dicey as far as access and availability, but I think maybe it's just somebody you're gonna have to see all the time. Ongoing relationship, even if it's not something that's deep, I feel like that may be something that you want to consider. Maybe I can communicate and not ghost, because I feel like it's just gonna make things more awkward. Because the way I look at it sometimes, like, what's gonna be more awkward for me? You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, like, what's gonna put more irritation on my day? Because sometimes not letting somebody know the real deal and acting funny or acting stank, or not being honest, or kind of just like ghosting the situation can put more weird energy at work, or put more weird energy between your friend group. You know what I'm saying? If you don't just be real. So I think just always kind of always looking at the pros and cons, and also weighing on the situation too. An ongoing relationship, how often I'm going to see you. Probably should just be honest and just say what I need to say, or cut it off and let you know why. But I also think we don't always have to make everything these big situations. I think we put a lot of sauce on things too, where it's like, I gotta send this whole text message, or I gotta let them know in this big way. It's been so many times where I've like stressed about sending a guy a text message, but I don't want to talk to me anymore, when he's just been like, it's cool, we can, like, it's fine, I understand. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they receive it very well. So I think also that's something that we also, I think we put a lot of pressure on. It's just like this expectation that they're going to be so upset, and it's going to be all this going on. And lastly, when vulnerability has been established, now if you open up to someone in a very deep way, and you tell them all this stuff, and they open up to you, and they ask you all these questions, and you give all this information to them that is personal and deep to them, and then they ghost you, or you try to ghost them, that's messed up. Because I feel like being vulnerable to somebody is kind of opening door for a next level of friendship or next level of a relationship. I think that's messed up for you to use that and then dismiss someone. I think it's a bit much to ghost someone when they're vulnerable with you, or you're vulnerable with them. I think that's a bit much. So as I will always do in these episodes during the Talk You Through It segment, is I will bring in an outside perspective. So I want to read this Reddit post and see what your take would be if you think the ghosting was valid or not, and I'll give my take. So it's titled, "Am I the asshole for ghosting a friend that always complains?" I have a friend who I talk to semi-regularly, no flirting or anything like that, strictly friends, but every time we talk, there's a new problem. I, as most other humans, have tons of shit on my plate at the moment. She's aware of that, but doesn't care, I guess. Basically, every time I try to have a normal conversation, she starts rambling on about how her life is so full of problems, asking for advice, trying to get me involved, etc. And to be honest, I could not care less about her problems at the moment. So I usually just don't respond. She never wants to talk about anything worth talking about. We could be conversing about puppies and rainbows, and then out of nowhere, she's like, my ex-boyfriend this, or my life is so bad, and it's quite annoying. She doesn't have any interest in anything but the negative in life, and I can't deal with her shit on top of mine. So I go sometimes for a week at a time, just so I can worry about myself and focus on positivity. Does that make me an asshole? So I'm going to read through some of the responses just to give you guys an idea of the lay of the land on what people thought. So someone said, just tell them being friends with them is exhausting. You clearly don't value the friendship. So how hard is it to tell someone you can't be friends with them anymore? That could be beneficial to the friend as well. Having someone call her out on her negativity, perhaps she doesn't realize or needs a reality check. It's not that I don't value the friendship, and I probably should have added that I do try and help, but every single time we talk, it's just negativity aside from the start of the conversation. Value friendship equals ghosting someone for weeks. Tell her she's a negative Nancy and that you can't deal with it anymore, and stop pretending you're getting anything out of this relationship. If you valued it, you wouldn't just ghost. You don't have to be friends with anyone if you don't want to, but going back and forth like this makes you the asshole. You're the asshole if you ghost her because that's an a-hole thing to do. Okay, so that's kind of like, those are kind of like a lot of the you're the assholes, but there were some I'm not the asshole, which I honestly agree with. Not the asshole. She sounds like she has some coping issues, and always talking about herself makes her seem pretty selfish. I have a friend like that, and I often do the same. I call it just growing apart. It's really tough to have a meaningful a reciprocal friendship when the other person is able to focus on anything other than themselves. If you want to salvage the friendship, though, you need to talk to her about her behavior and what you need from the friendship. Not the asshole, because I relate to this really hard. I had a friend who would be the kind of person to sit there and whine about whether she would have oatmeal or cereal and expect me to give her detailed pros and cons list. It's exhausting. She needs a therapist. Using any friend as a therapist is not that great for a two-way relationship. Somebody said, so why is ghosting them okay? Because at some point it's okay to walk away from people who just don't make you feel good, always take from you without giving anything, or always annoying the hell out of you. Opie said in the comments that she had tried talking to the friend, but the friend piles on negativity. Some people don't hear the part where we say, please stop, and they just add on to the shit pile. That is their life without actually doing anything to clean up that shit pile. Imagine having a friend who drops what they have in their hand every day, but instead of picking it up, they make 20 Facebook statuses about how life is hard and unfair and everything sucks. And you tell them how they can just pick up the item they dropped because it's literally right there on the floor in front of them, and they tell you how hard that is, and they get sad. This is obviously a ludicrous example, but that's how it feels sometimes. So it just goes on for more people to be like basically debating if you should ghost or not. And I relate to this because I've had friends like this where you call them and it's only negative, where you call them, they only want to talk about themselves. You try to talk about yourselves, they don't listen. You try to insinuate like, hey, can we talk about something else? They continue to talk about it or they circle back to talk about it. And I think you guys put a lot of ease in just tell your friend she's exhausting and just tell your friend you don't like hearing that negative stuff. That's another layer of exhaustion for the person. Like for me to have to do that is also exhausting because if they're not someone that even receives, if they can't even solve their own problems, why would they even receive me telling them they are a problem? So I think we also need to understand the nuances there. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any conversation with your friend, but I don't think it needs to be these large in-depth conversations that they are not set up personally to receive that. You probably just be like, but everybody's negative. We all have problems. Like people respond like that. I've had friends that respond like that or they'll say like, you're my friend. You're supposed to listen to my problems. That's what friends do. People think that as well, that you're always supposed to listen to their problems because you're their friend. So I definitely think ghosting is okay. And she says she just ghosts her for like a couple weeks at a time. And sometimes you need to leave people on red. You need to let them understand that I'm not going to solve your problems so they can understand that you're not going to solve their problems. Because I feel like sometimes you got to train people. And that's one thing I realized in life as an adult. Sometimes you have to train people to treat you the way you want to be treated. I don't want you contacting me every time you have a problem. So when you reach out to me with a problem, I'm not going to respond anymore. I'm not going to be the first to give you advice or give you thoughts. I'm going to let it rest. I'm not going to add into your event session. I'm going to let it rest and you can go talk to somebody else or you can reach out to whoever or deal with it yourself like an adult. I'll go from there. And I actually had some friendships get better because I've done that. Or I've kind of set that boundary where like, girl, or set that boundary. And I've also told people where it's like, I just can't always receive this negative energy transfers, and I just cannot always receive that. So I understand you may have a bad day or you have things going on or whatever, but I cannot always receive that. We all have ups and downs in life, but one of my therapists always told me, she said, relationships should be more like, think about like 80-20. Especially the relationships you choose. They should be 80% good, 80% positive, 80% kind of like enrichment, and 20% the problems in life, the craziness in life, the chaos of life. And it sounds like she was basically 100% chaos, negativity of life. So that's not even the type of friend that you want to have around. And if you're not even going to receive me kind of trying to let you know, like, hey, maybe let's not be so negative, why would you receive and have understanding of me basically letting you know the type of friend you are? Now, maybe I didn't explain that 100% the best, but I just really feel like I'm not always going to sit and have all these kind of deep conversations with people all the time. I just don't have the capacity for that. And when you try to let somebody know in the nicest and most polite ways, why do you have to be this intense bad guy to let them know that how they think about life and everything is just so dark? And maybe they really just do need help. Maybe they just really do need therapy. So maybe you saying that is not the best thing for them. And as a friend, you can still care about their well-being and still care about their mental state and not just want to dismiss them or just, and not just want to diminish them in such a way. So I definitely think there's layers to it, but I definitely think her taking time away from her a couple weeks at a time when she sends these crazy texts or when she reaches out on a lot of negativity, I don't think nothing wrong with that. She said she's voiced her concerns before, so she actually sounds like she's made an effort as a friend, but I've been there before, and sometimes she's like, I just don't have time for this. And it may not even be something negative, it's just like, I just don't want to hear this story anymore. You told me this, or you gave me the download. Sometimes it can just be as simple as that, and people don't understand that you don't want to keep hearing the same thing. I know when I've had friends before who date people, they sometimes all they want to talk about is their partner, and it's like, girl, I don't want to talk about that all day. I'm not dating him, you are. So that was my little Reddit post. Please be sure to let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Were they the asshole? Were they not the asshole? What do you think? Would you ghost a friend yourself? Would you let them know? Would you have this deep conversation? If you've already had multiple conversations with them, what would you do? Please let me know in the comments. So hopefully that kind of helped bridge the gap of like even a real life perspective of how this can kind of link together when it comes to access and ghosting and how it's all linked together. And that was a perfect example of why this friend always felt she had access, but also why this friend felt like ghosting may be the best route because it's like, I've tried everything else or I just don't want to hear this negativity. Kind of also leads to my big takeaway from this segment of Talk You Through It when it comes to the ghosting and the excess. Is that at the end of the day, we can always set a tone. We can let people know what the real deal is. People don't always know what's going on in our lives if we don't have the capacity. People don't always know that we're exhausted, that we're stressed. And if someone is important in our life, then let them know. I know when I was going through a lot, I did let my friends know that I'm not doing really well. I'm depressed. I maybe sometimes where I'm kind of isolating myself. I did let my friends know that when my grandma passed away. I did let my friends know that I may just not be in a mental space to kiki and do certain things that I was doing, prior to that. So I think just also just letting people know the real deal. If you really do have that genuine connection and you feel that that's well deserved when it comes to describing or explaining your accessibility, and your availability, I think that also helps eliminate a lot of issues in the future when it comes to communication or lack thereof. But the biggest takeaway is I feel like it's communication when they deserve it, communication when it's an established relationship, and if you have the capacity, if you have the availability, by all means, if you want to new connections, new things, if you always want to make sure that you're letting someone know that the real, that's great. But ultimately, I don't think that's a requirement. And I think at the core, your availability and your accessibility and what you have the capacity to do is what matters most. Okay, so moving on to crush, crave, or crash. So crush is always a person, a living thing, human being who I am excited about. They did something cool. I want to just acknowledge them. All the things. So this week's crush is going to be Michael B. Jordan. So a few days ago, during the Critics' Choice Awards, for Best Actor, Timothée Chalamet won for, forgot what movie it was, over Michael B. Jordan in Sinners. And obviously, Michael B. Jordan wanted that award. I'm sure he's going to win a lot of awards that are coming out in the next few months. But Timothée Chalamet does what every white celebrity does when they think a black celebrity should have got their award, even though it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of like a pity response. And hey, when Adele did it to Beyonce, I'm not saying it wasn't cute and all. I know Billie Eilish, I forgot who she did it for. But Timothée Chalamet did it to Michael B. Jordan. Oh, Sinners was such a good movie. Michael B., like you did that. I'm so happy I watched it and stayed to the end of the movie. Blah, 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 blah. Which is all cute and all, but seeing Michael B. Jordan's face is just, if you're a black person, that smirk, that look he gave is just, you felt that. Because you know what that's like. You know exactly what that smirk is, where you get passed over for a promotion, where you do not get the recognition you deserve for something, where somebody else gets the job you want, or whatever. Someone else gets the recognition, gets the award, gets the thing over you, and you know it's because of race, or it's because of privilege that someone else has over you because you're black, or some other marginalized situation. So I just want to say shout out to Michael B. Jordan. I think his acting in Sinners was phenomenal. I think it's a phenomenal movie. I'm so happy he made such a masterpiece. I hope he continues to do so. I mean, honestly, I used to be someone who used to love Michael B. Jordan's acting sometimes and hate it the next. So I really am genuinely saying I enjoyed his acting. He killed it. He did that playing two roles. It was an amazing movie. I giving him all his flowers, and that is genuine out of my mouth. So my crush this week is Michael B. Jordan, his role in Sinners, and how I hope he still snacks some awards this season. I hope he can get that Academy Award, but just seeing the way things are going, I don't know. But we're still showing you love, Michael B. Okay, so my crave is always something I'm obsessed with. So y'all, I'm obsessed with Jay Don's, I believe that's how you say his name, his new R&B EP. Well, kind of new. It released in October, but he was the voice of Simba in The Lion King in 2019. He was the voice of young Simba in The Lion King. And now he's kind of pursuing his music career. He's technically, I guess, a Disney kid or Disney person. But he's pursuing his R&B career. His real name is J.D. McCrary, I want to say. But he's now pursuing his music career. And y'all, this EP is only 10 songs. But y'all, when I say this is giving me all the R&B feels that I've been missing, it's giving modern R&B from a young person that's talking about young love and puppy love and all these things and the ups and downs. But y'all, it's very sweet. It's very sultry. It's giving Mario Lloyd with a dash of Usher, but for Gen Z times, for the modern times. I think it's amazing. I think his team is amazing. Whoever worked on this project with him, it's blowing me away. There's no skips. I like every song. My favorites are Lullaby, Caviar, and Don't Hate Me Now, but all of them are amazing. I say check it out if you are an R&B lover. He's still pretty young. I want to say he's 18 or 19 years old. So definitely support the brother. He has a lot of career left in him, but it's cool to see someone coming up that gets R&B, that's also singing a very sweet vibe, but it's not about sex and all this graphic stuff. So I would say listen to it if you are into R&B and you want someone who's modern, I can spit on Mario or Lloyd. I definitely think you'll enjoy it and you should take a listen. Okay, so my crash this week, which my crash is always something that's basically crash. I don't like it, get out of my face. It could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be an object, it could be an event, it could be a movie, it could be thought, it could be a phrase, it could be ideology. So today's is weaponized silence. Weaponized silence is silence used to punish, control, or confuse. And it's like a tactic that's used to kind of basically manipulate a situation with the person. So, and that's a form of ghosting or a form of not communicating that I said earlier. That to me is toxic and horrible. So that's going to be my crash. I like if you are using that as a way to get your way. I think that's disgusting, especially if you have an ongoing relationship with this person. I think there's better ways to communicate and there's better way to solve problems. And I don't think not communicating ever makes sense. I do think, yes, sometimes we can take beats from people and take breaks from people and take space. But I think using your silence to manipulate a situation or control a situation, I think that is toxic. Because when it comes to communication, when you create boundaries, that creates clarity. But when you use weaponized silence, that creates confusion. Because I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you're mad at me. I don't know what the issue is. Why you're not letting me know, or or it's just like, what do I need to do to get them to speak or them to address or them to come forward? That's just all manipulative and it'll leave somebody in the dark. So yeah, so that's my crash for the week. So to end with the critical question, what level of access do you have the capacity to offer right now? And let's just sit with that. So, if this episode resonated with you, please be sure to send it to someone navigating their distance. And definitely let me know what you think of the podcast so far. But as always, until next time, stay cute, stay curious, and keep it critical.